Kia ora, my name is Taeao Delamere. I am the receptionist for TDA Immigrations. Today I'm going to do an interview with our former Immigration Minister of New Zealand and our current founder for TDA Immigrations. There was a Zoom seminar that was conducted a few days ago by our current minister, Ian Lees-Galloways, and there was only about 200 that were allowed to be on the Zoom. Many participants that wanted to be in the Zoom meeting missed out, so therefore we are going to ask our former minister some questions. So I'll get straight into the first question. Can you tell us what your thoughts on the minister's seminar and your opinions on how Minister Lees-Galloways performed?
Well, hi Taeao, and hello viewers, all you current visa holders and visa applicants. I thought the minister did, in the circumstances, quite a good job. It was a pity that only 200 could get in, but also the minister is rather constrained as to what he can say at the moment. The country was in a lockdown, we've just come out of it, down to level 3, and the government's not going to be able to make any real decisions until, I believe, several weeks' time, until they get a better understanding of just what the situation in New Zealand is. And in the meantime, for the last 5 weeks, immigration offices have all been closed around the world. They have a small emergency staff operating out of Wellington and 1 or 2 people operating from home, processing critically important COVID-19 applications. They won't open their office, I don't think, until we go to level 2.
Yeah. So did the minister give any indication when INZ offices would reopen and full processing of applications would start again?
Well, the minister was asked that question a number of times. And as I said, it's rather difficult for him. They're not going to reopen. They've announced they won't reopen until they get down to level 2, the alert status. And then officers can go back to work. And there's a huge backlog. I mean, even before the lockdown, there was a huge backlog of applications. And of course, with no processing effectively now for about 6 weeks, that backlog is even much greater. And they will need to look at how they prioritize the processing of applications.
So through this seminar, I understand that the minister was only able to answer about 6 to 7 questions from participants before he closed out that seminar. Can you tell us about those questions?
Yeah, well, that's correct, Taeao. Look, the first question to the minister was, and excuse me, I'll read it, I've got it here in front of me. Someone asked, New Zealand legislation allows emergency benefits to be paid in a pandemic to temporary visa holders who have no job, no income. When is the government going to use this power? And that was the question. And the minister's response was, as far as New Zealand government is concerned, those of you in that situation, first you need to go to your embassy because they are, you are their responsibility. You're not the responsibility of the New Zealand government or the New Zealand taxpayer. And the minister said he was unaware of any other government in the world that was paying benefits to citizens of other countries who were trapped because of COVID-19. And as he closed out, just as New Zealanders caught in this situation overseas are the responsibility of the New Zealand government, it works in the other direction as well.
So what do you think of the minister's response? Was he being fair and was he being right? Do you think that's right of him to say?
Yeah, look, I don't think the minister has much room to maneuver there. I mean, the sad reality is that if you don't have any income, don't have any job, you need to prepare for the worst scenario outcome. which is you may have to return to your own country. Now, it's too early to make that decision. Obviously, the borders are locked down here in New Zealand and in many countries overseas. There's no airlines flying hardly anywhere. But while the government is very cognizant of the plight of overseas non-resident visa holders, they're not sure what they're going to be doing at this stage. They are faced with possibly several 100,000 newly unemployed New Zealanders, and that will be their priority, to work out what to do for New Zealanders. And the other question that followed on from that was that someone asked that people on temporary visas are meant to have provided New Zealand INZ with evidence. Well, actually, that's what the minister was saying, that they had the funds to support themselves. And he confirmed that the government does not have any current plans to pay emergency benefits to temporary visa holders. Now, I thought there was a bit somewhat wrong there. Certainly students and visitor visa holders must have funds to support themselves, but people on work visas are not required to show funds. So there is a problem there, and it doesn't get away from the fact that these people, they are struggling massively. They're stuck here in New Zealand. They have no income, little support, and I note even today a letter was drafted by immigration lawyer Alistair McClymont, asking the government to take urgent action, and I understand why. But for the government, it's a matter of matching priorities, who comes first. And this is an election year. And I can tell you now, whether people want to hear it or not, the government is going to go for doing what's best for New Zealanders, because if the public see the government putting the interests of foreigners, visa holders, ahead of New Zealanders in this situation, it'll cost them the election. So those are some of the dynamics that are at play here.
So that's true for visitor visas and student visa holders, but isn't the minister wrong in that work visas are not required to have funds to support themselves before getting a work visa? After all, they would appear to defeat the whole purpose of a work visa.
Yeah, Taeao, you're correct. And that is an issue, as to these people weren't required to have funds. Their funds were going to come from working, but they're not working. They've lost their jobs. And at some stage, they're going to have to look at it. One thing I'm very confident of is that this government is not going to sit back and let people starve. But yeah, it's a real big problem.
And just a quick small question, isn't there any legislations that allow the government to pay foreigners an emergency benefit?
Yeah, there is. That was raised by a couple of people, and that's Section 64 of the Social Security Act 2018. And in that section, the Minister of Social Welfare, Carmel Sepuloni, does have the power to authorise the grant of emergency benefits during a declared pandemic. And that's what we have here. We have a declared pandemic, and Carmel certainly has the power to direct work and income to provide emergency benefits. But at the moment, I understand from what the minister said, the government is very loath to invoke that legislation at the moment, but they may well do. We'll have to wait and see.
So far, how do you feel about all of this? Is it fair? Was the government's response so far morally defensible?
Look, I think so. This is a situation.
Because many of these people have been living here and working here. Many years for New Zealand. Many are married and have kids here, and many haven't even lived in New Zealand before.
Yep, and you're right. But at the end of the day, they are not citizens, they're not residents, they have temporary visas, and under current policy, if you breach the conditions of your visa, that means you're not working in the job you're supposed to, then you can lose it. Now, in saying that, I mean, that's being real blunt and very unfair and unreasonable. These people didn't do anything deliberately. This thing, this COVID-19 has happened, and all of a sudden, along with thousands of New Zealanders, their hours have been cut or terminated completely. So it is an issue, and they need to work through it. But at the moment, for the government to go forward and activate Section 64 of the Social Security Act, when hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders are facing possible financial ruin, yeah, that's a big decision for the government, especially when there's an election less than 5 months away. And I'm sure the Prime Minister and her cabinet are looking at all these issues and trying to work out how best to move forward on that.
So I understand that the Minister was asked about reducing the salary levels for resident policies, requiring a minimum salary. What did the Minister say about that?
Yeah, the Minister was asked, and that was for skilled migrant category and also for parent category, where there's a salary level you have to meet. The Minister was quite clear. The government has no intention of relaxing or reducing the salary levels as per the policy. And I think this is probably an appropriate time to, again, point out to people the government is facing a crisis that no other government in the history of New Zealand has ever faced. In fact, pretty much no government around the world has faced in their own countries. And here in New Zealand, that is 200 to 300,000 New Zealanders may well have lost their job. They are going to go on the unemployment rolls. And that's where the focus of the government has to be. And the rules will change. Now, what those rules will be, I don't know. But whatever rules were in force 6 weeks ago, reality is, I think, you can consider them in suspended animation. The government will announce new rules at some stage in the future once the offices reopen and they start processing applications again.
Yeah. Another area that is of great concern for those people who have valid work visas and have been working in New Zealand but were overseas when our borders were closed, and consequently they did not make it back to New Zealand. Did the Minister address this issue?
He did, and the news wasn't good. It is, as he said, it's unfortunate you weren't here. We've closed the border, and we're not going to reopen it for you to come back until we are clear that we believe it is safe to reopen the border. And he also mentioned that under questioning, and unfortunately, if your visa expires, your valid work visa expires before we open the border and before you can get back to New Zealand, at this stage, the intent of the government is that you will probably have to reapply for your work visa again. And again, one of the reasons for that is the world has changed. People who have temporary work visas not in New Zealand, the government is not going to allow, in my opinion, those people to take jobs of New Zealand citizens, New Zealand residents. And it's a tragedy for all these people. I mean, I know many people, they went home for a holiday. As you said before, they've lived here for several years. They've got houses here. They've got cars here. The kids go to school here. And this is a big, big problem that the government has to try and work its way around. What is fair and reasonable for those people, taking into account what is fair and reasonable and what is the expectation of the New Zealand taxpayer, the New Zealand voter.
Well, so that is certainly not the best news for essential skill work visas or those that are applying now for essential skills work visas. But as you've said many times, people do deserve to be told just the straight truth.
Yep.
With that, did the Minister get asked any questions specifically on resident visas?
Well, he did, but let me go back to that point you raised by telling
It's true.
truth, the blunt truth. You know, at TDA, our policy is we tell you how it really is. And believe me, I
It's
wish,
not always right.
and I wish I didn't have to be the bearer of bad news. But in the day, the people out there who are holding these temporary visas or any visas, and they're in trouble because of COVID-19, it would be totally unhelpful, totally misleading to give them false impressions that it will all be good once we lift the lockdown and we open the borders. It's not going to be all good, purely because there's going to be tens and tens of thousands of unemployed Kiwis, and they are going to come first in whatever decision making the government makes. Those people who have work visas for post-COVID-19 crisis skills, they'll probably be okay. But there's going to be a great revisitation as to what is considered essential skills now. What was essential 6 weeks ago is not going to be essential next month. And like I said, it's not pleasant to be able to be the bearer of bad news, but it would just be so dishonest to give people false optimism. They need to really come to grips with where things are at. Now, that what you meant, was it residents?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did the minister get any questions on residence visa?
Yeah, there are a lot of people wanting to ask, and some questions were asked on skilled migrant residence visas and a couple on parent category. Look, a lot of people have had applications in there for many, many months, some dating back to 2018, prior to the lockdown. We all know that Immigration New Zealand, the processing of skilled migrant resident visas was just, it was embarrassing. It was hopeless. I mean, for someone to have put in an application back September, October 2018, and a year and a half later, still waiting to have a case officer allocated, that's just, for me, unacceptable. As being the former minister, I would have been ropeable if it happened. But in the day, it has happened, and that's the reality. And when we start processing again, the numbers, the backlog's even going to be bigger. Now, here's the real problem. 6 weeks ago, pretty much all of those people with applications processing, they're processing because they met the criteria. And eventually, assuming everything is true and correct and genuine, they would in due course likely be approved for residence. But the problem for most of them, that requires them to have an offer of skilled employment or existing skilled employment. And they did 6 weeks ago. Today, many of them don't. They've lost their jobs. The employer has withdrawn the job offer. The employer is required to be financially sustainable in the employment of that person. That's all changed. And the minister made it clear that at this stage, the government has no intention of relaxing the policies on that. Now, I've already written to the government and the minister pointing that out, and that just seems to me very unfair, and that perhaps they should consider making an assessment on those applications based on the situation as at the 1st of March 2020. So if the employer was sustainable then, if the job was okay then, that should be it. But then again, the government's also got to look at the political side of things. Will that cause problems politically? Because one of the things they want to do this year in less than 5 months' time is win the next election, and they're not going to push forward with policy that would put that at risk. So in short, yes, the government's well aware of the problems. What are the answers? They don't have them right now. Hopefully, by the time we get into level 2, they'll have a clearer idea.
Okay then, so INZ offices all around the world have been closed for more than, well, around 5 weeks now, except for an emergency team at Wellington's head office. And consequently, all processing of applications have ceased, and already a very large backlog of applications has just gotten much bigger and will probably just keep getting much bigger. Did Minister Liz Galloway give any indication on what the government's priorities will be when INZ offices reopen and immigration offices, and when immigration officers can go back to work?
Well, as I mentioned before, I think they will go back at level 2. They have a few people working from home, being able to process a few things. So you've got a whole range of different types of applications. The ones that I think will just sit there will be work visa, essential skills. The government's not going to move on those, I believe, until they work out how many Kiwis are unemployed and how many Kiwis can fill the vacancies. And if that means, visa holders, migrants missed out, well, that's going to be what happens. I think the applications that will be least affected will probably be partnerships, which is quite ironic given the disastrous way partnerships have been processed in the past. But in the day, partnerships are based purely on, are you in a relationship with a qualified sponsor? So there's nothing to do with work visa or anything like that. So, but I also think they'll prioritize those. I think those people who are partners of New Zealand citizens will be the highest priority for partnership. Those who are partners with resident holders will be highest, second highest. Those who are in a relationship with temporary visas, visitor visas, work visas, student visas, there will be no rush to give them priority at all, in my opinion. So the priority for the government will be anyone who is needed to get the economy going. Their visas will be processed very quickly. So, and those who are required. Right now, if you're a doctor or nurse, you'll get approved next day, sort of thing, because we have this medical crisis, COVID-19, and we need all hands to deck. But if we put that away and get through that, the importance of those medical type work visas will become lower, and then the focus will be on who can get the economy going. And that's what the government, I think, will be looking at prioritizing.
Cool. So just wrapping up, do you have any last comments about the seminar itself, and just any last comments for anyone that's watching?
Yeah, I do. If perchance Ian Lees Galloway gets to see this, and I'm sure he's not rushing out to watch it. The last thing you need is your predecessor hanging around over you. But if any of your staff, I would encourage them to approach the minister and ask him, run a Zoom session every week. Get one of the Zoom packages that allows up to 1,000 participants anyway, because he will get a lot of buy-in on that, and he'll get a lot of good feedback and credibility. I mean, he's the Minister of Immigration, and while he's also the member for Palmerston North, his profile in the country is really as Minister of Immigration, and there are literally thousands of people relying on him to keep them informed as to their immigration situation. But for the people, what can you do? Says, look, just stay tuned. We'll do this sort of information briefing interviews with other staff members as well, try and keep you up to date. Once you have an idea as to what you think you may need to do, then I encourage you to get your new application in as quickly as possible. right now, try and get everything ready together. And also, and this is going to be really, really hard for you to do because you don't want to do it. You don't want to face up to it. Work out what's the worst case scenario that could affect you and your family, and plan for it and hope to God it never happens. Okay? But yeah, look, the reality is for quite a few of you out there, that worst case scenario is going to be your reality, your nightmare. So plan for it. But also at the same time, work out what can I do if I want to stay. I think I would be encouraging the government to, those work visa holders who are going to lose their visas because they haven't got a job, is the government should try to help them perhaps study further. And because right now I don't see the government letting in students from overseas anytime soon. You know, we have universities, we have tertiary schools wanting to run their courses, wanting to offer to the overseas students. I think for the rest of the year, the only students will be those who are in New Zealand already. I don't think they're going to let foreign students, international students into New Zealand until next year, probably. I hope I'm wrong, but until other countries can control COVID-19, I'm pretty sure New Zealanders do not want potentially high-risk people coming into New Zealand, even though we sure as heck could have those students here. Would be very beneficial for us. So those are the options. You need to look out. If we can help, by all means, you're welcome to contact us at TDA. Go to our TDA Immigration Facebook page. We're trying to answer everyone's questions. Go to our website. We're just starting to run a forum where people can put questions up there and we will try answer them. Others can try answer them. Yeah, be active and be ready to go once the government announces what they're going to do.
Cool. So I just wanted to repeat that our website is www.tdavisa.nz, just if you had wanted more information. And yeah, I think we've come to a close. I hope that this video has proved useful to anyone that comes on and to the thousands that missed out on that Zoom seminar and are struggling to find answers through this crazy crisis. TDA offices will remain closed for now, but we are fully functional, working remotely using Zoom, WeChat, email, Messenger, and even Facebook to help our clients. If you would like to discuss your immigration situations with us, you can post a request with TDA on their Facebook or send an email to inquiries@tdavisa.nz. And from me, just stay safe, stay home, keep your social distancing, and hopefully we have another one of these with more of our workers or advisors. Anything from you to finish off?
No, thank you, Taeao. Yeah, we'll do this again, maybe with some of our other advisors. So anyway, listeners, viewers, I do hope, like Taeao said, that this has proven useful for you. And, you know, we'll possibly meet in the not too distant future.